It's a great pleasure to meet you all. The title of my talk today is, as you can see, Rereading Dinghy. But there's one thing gone. Rereading Dinghy is art, actually. But it's okay. Reading Dinghy, in general, we're talking of whatever cherished in your mind in relation to Dinghy's artistic practice for almost 40 years. In relation to the title of my talk, Rereading Dinghy, what I teach primarily at school is aesthetics and art history. And in art history studies, the reading itself in relation to the audience studies, it appears very often, in fact. As you can see, there are three different ways of appreciating and embracing art or exhibition. Three different ways: seeing, looking, and reading. What is the seeing? Seeing by chance. As you can see, I saw a beautiful bird outside my window this morning. You happen to see the bird, right? Without intention. And then looking by intention means I visited the ShanghART Gallery today to look at Dinghy's new book. So you have an intention. You came here with intention. That is looking. And then what is reading? Reading by active engagement. So this is something new thing that you have to learn, because reading is the most active behavior as an audience of the exhibition, let's say, or as an audience, as a reader of the Dinghy's art, for instance. So reading Dinghy, that means what? Carefully observing and recognizing Dinghy's art. So the reading itself is the most active expression as an audience. The reader means a researcher. I'm one of the researchers of Dinghy, artist Dinghy, since I have curated 3 exhibitions related to Dinghy. The first one was back in 2018 when I curated a group show at the Shanghai PSA titled The Challenging Souls. I have invited one French artist, Yves Klein, one Korean Japanese artist, Yu Yuan, and Dinghy from Korea. So 3 different nationality artists I've invited. Challenging souls, it's a spirit of the challenging, of course, towards the sense of avant-gardeness in contemporary art. The second exhibition was, the title was The Cross Galaxy at the Shenzhen Museum of Contemporary Art and Urban Planning. It was back in 2023. And then at that time, we're discussing about the publishing a catalog or book. But I told Ding Laoshi that we would better think of producing a real book, inviting those Dinghy researchers from across the world, let's say. He definitely agreed. Later, probably after the show is over, and then we can make a real researched books. And then I had a talk with the Marsili Editory, which is a publisher. The completion of that book project is going to be shown today, probably to you. The third project happened last year at the Hakgoje Art Space in Seoul. And then I have invited Dinghy from China, and then Shoda Chiaru from Japan, and the Jung-sun from Korea. So the exhibition was titled, I Thought I Lost It. That was the title, I Thought I Lost It. And then that was last September. The great difference between seeing and reading is this. Seeing is what? It's not an intentional, but you come to see, you get to see it. See what? A lot of images, including moving images. And seeing is a means of receiving and perceiving any kind of objects and scenes. So it is considered to be cutting edge. And also, we have been living in a society where we can witness the rise of the images and the rise of the internet, rise of the TV, Instagram, YouTube, and SNS. So we sometimes are very much disturbed by this kind of technology-oriented apparatus. But we tend to be very much enjoying, but it's very much distracting us as well. If I repeatedly present this kind of written letters to the audience, you get tired immediately. When image appears, you say, finally. Reading is that tiring, in fact, because it is letter text. And then reading is considered to be cliche. It's not a cutting edge, it's cliche, which means old. And then we are experiencing the decline of letters, fall of newspaper, fall of the books. Book sales is radically reducing, as you can see. But we all know the letter, text itself is so important that we cannot really forget it at all in our life. In Europe, for instance, let's get teenagers reading. That means what? We have to let the teenagers read rather than texting, rather than seeing. Seeing means all internet-related things. And then even they're thinking of making a constitution, Youth Online Access Prohibition Act. This is something newly popped up in EU, the parliament. Thank you for taking time for digesting letters. There is a saying, do not look for the meaning of the painting, but look, feel, and contemplate for yourself. Who did say this? The person who said this is sitting in front of there, is a Ding.
丁老师的原话。
So do not look for the meaning of the painting, but look, feel, and contemplate for yourself. It's very nice. Finally, it's not reading, it's not looking, it's not seeing. This man is listening to the painting. Have you ever seen any kind of audience or reader who tried to listen to the painting? The painting tells you, whispering. This man is a very, very famous philosopher, anthropologist, a sociologist, and then he's an environmental activist. Name is Bruno Latour. And then after that, I asked him, did the painting tell you something? Oh yeah, a lot, but I'll tell you later. He didn't tell me yet, although he died. So this man, Bruno Latour, actually he passed away in 2022, but he visited Shanghai in 2017 when I was curating Shanghai project in Chinese, Shanghai Zhongzi. Actually, today's interpreter, Ms. Wu Qianyuan, was a team member of this project. And then he visited Shanghai 2017 and stayed in Shanghai for about a week to create a kind of a workshop with the Chinese philosophers, anthropologists, the sociologists, and then NGO people. So three of us. And then I asked him, what's your perception? What's your impression on Ding's work? And he said, the cross, which is a keyword, the visual keyword of the Ding's art. The cross appears to be insignificant and meaningless abstract symbol, but the work is full of energy as the continuous collection of the small things forms crowd-like group. So his comment on the meaning of the cross as crowd-like a group, because he's been all the time considering the crowd very, very important. He sometimes curated as a philosopher, as a thinker, and as an anthropologist, but it's very unusual. He curated like 3-4 very important exhibition. One is a critical zone at the ZKM in Karlsruhe, and he even curated Taipei Biennale. So one of the reasons he curates is that he would like to meet the large audience directly. He published many, many books, including Reset Modernity, which is a very, very famous book. When he died, New York Times, the first line starts like this: the most famous philosopher in the world, but the most controversial in his home country, passed away today. As you can see, this is Ding's new book, published by Marsilio Editori. I understand today's event, organized by the ShanghART, is to celebrate Cross Galaxy, newly published book of Ding. And the Marsilio, the publisher, has been recognized very well as an official publisher of the Venice Biennale books and catalogs. And the Marsilio hold a position, very unique position in humanities science, and then visual art. So the books and catalogs they have published so far for modern and contemporary artists, and almost countless, including Modigliani, or Giacomo Balla, Lucio Fontana, Jeff Koons, and Damien Hirst, Anish Kapoor, and Dingy. As the editor of this book, I'm deeply grateful to everyone involved in its publication process. I regret that I cannot name all individually. I'd like to introduce the Yves Langlois. Yves Langlois he was born in France, but he's been spending most of his lifetimes in the United States. He has been the professor of the Columbia University, Harvard University, and Princeton University almost for nearly 40 years. And then he's one of the most known books, Painting as Model, published in 1990 by MIT Press. One of his main focus on the definition and understanding of the abstract art. He says the geometric forms of modern art are the essence of the abstract art. Yves Langlois, as one of the most important art historian and art critic, and he is one of the editors of the October magazine. Have you ever heard about October? October is one of the most important art historical, art critical journal, very much academically researched book. It is still going on, starting from back in 1980s. And then those editors at that time, they called themselves an editor, is Hal Foster. Hal Foster is a professor at Princeton University now. And then he is a very, very famous art critic in America. And then he was a co-editor. And then Benjamin Buchloh. Benjamin Buchloh is a German-born American art critic and historian also. They're all very famous, 6 people. And Rosalind Krauss used to teach at Columbia University for 50 years. Now she's retiring. So these people, they formed the group October. Why October? October has like a metaphoric meaning behind. Anyway, so one of the editors, Yves Langlois, written this book, and then he points out geometric forms of modern art are the essence of the abstract. It is the key point. Clement Greenberg, they say he is one of the most famous art critics in the 20th century. The previous art historian, Yves Langlois, he is one of the students of the Clement Greenberg. And then Greenberg said, abstract art is the highest form of art to develop out of Western culture since the Enlightenment. This is the point. So we all tend to be understanding that the root of the abstract art is the product of the 20th century, or at the latest, at the end of the 19th century. But he brings that back to the Renaissance period. He is very correct in a way. He is like a very typical the formalist aesthetician. I would like to talk about some perspective of the Wu Guanzhong in relation to the form, beauty, and then artistic practice. He said the essence of the painting is beauty, and that good art can be beautiful. And in fact, most good art is beautiful. So according to the Wu Guanzhong's point of view, those who create not beautiful, unbeautiful artistic objects, you have to repent. But the category of defining the notion of beauty, it really varies. There's a political beauty, social beauty, environmental beauty, all the different kind of beauties, and ugly beauty also. So it really varies. But Wu Guanzhong says, form over subject matter. Subject matter is less important than the form, he said. And then he said, no subject but form. Don't talk about the subject first. Form itself tells. And then he said, the beauty beyond the form. Beauty is even more important than the form. So I tried to juxtapose these 2 paintings. The left one is a Wu Guanzhong painting, and then right one is a Ding's painting. As you can see, the Wu Guanzhong is not an entirely abstract artist. He's a semi-abstract artist. If you take a look at that, if you deconstruct this reality of this painting, and then it becomes like that, you can really create a comparison between these two paintings. One might say, this is almost the same, or the others say, this could be very different. But on the other hand, in terms of the form, in terms of the beauty, it could go together. It allies together. What's the difference between this? What is appeared here is something very different. There's a huge difference between this semi-abstract and then abstract painting. This painting, this is also the Wu Guanzhong's the Red House of Qingdao, and the right one is a Ding's painting. In terms of the color, it might share in common, and then Wu Guanzhong's painting is much more realistic, and Ding's painting is completely abstraction. So the Wu Guanzhong's painting is much more detailed, and then Ding's painting is what? It's much more ellipsed. It's completely deconstructed. And then if you're able to share two different paintings, you will be able to find the same elements in it. This is a poster logo of the Cross Galaxy exhibition at the Shenzhen Museum of Contemporary Art. And as you can see, this is an exhibition view. What is interesting is that, as you can see, this is Ding's works. And then you can see the ceiling. Ceiling also is composed of what? Grid, which is the cross. So it is nicely matching. That's what I'm saying. We did not create the ceiling itself, but it goes together. This is also exhibition view. And you can see the configuration and reconfiguration of the space. Space design itself is very important in exhibition. So this one is designed by the French architect and designer Margot, and then she did a very good job. And those paintings, as you can see, 4 paintings are newly created for, this is very big paintings for this show. This room, there's no painting, but as you can see, there is a fans installed from the ceiling. And those fans, this work of art as well, the bottom of the fan is Ding's work. This is not just work of art, it's in operation. It works as a fan. So let's go back to the birth of the cross, back to the mid-1980s, an exhibition by China National Museum. As you can see, this person is a very young man. This is the one when Ding Laoshi was 27 years old, and he was one of 180 some artists participating in this group show, huge group show at the China National Museum in Beijing. He was one of the selected artists in the exhibition called China/Avant-Garde. That was the English title. And then Chinese title was 现代艺术展. That is the Chinese title. So in this exhibition, this is for the first time he presented his newly created works. It's a birth of the Shizi, which is an appearance of the crosses. On the right-hand side is titled The Appearance of Crosses 1. And the left side, this one, is Appearance of Cross number 3. Both was created in 1988, but next year, 1989, he participated in this group show. This is Appearance of the Cross number 3. That one is Appearance of Cross number 1. Cross itself is design, or it's a symbol or sign itself. But cross has a lot different level of meaning. This is a very early period of the Ding's painting. Appearance Cross in 1992. He said, my cross images made art more abstract because there is no meaning between the line. To paint with a ruler and a ruling pen so that my paintings are void of all technique. That is to say, there are no brush strokes, no any expression of the skill in painting. And then he wanted to propose like two different statements at the time. Statements on his painting. One, precision. Precision is correctness, unintegrated and certain, like 1 + 1 = 2. It cannot become 3 or 4. You don't need the imagination. You don't need to be creative on it. It has to be very much precinct and precision. And he says, use clear and pure expression. Abandon the clutter of the right or wrong. Second statement is what? Is adherence to the principle of the automatic color selection, which means that is the distrust of the Cézanne and Matisse theory of color. Because Cézanne and Matisse, the Matisse is a student of the Cézanne. He was hugely influenced by Cézanne color. So the sense of color, definition of color, it applies this. The thing is very critical to that. Ding Lao, I have a question. Do you know this man?
丁老师认识这个人吗
我觉得有点像铝盆，但是不知道是不是。
？Probably.
You don't know well. He's lucky or unlucky. He appears in this photo. He will appear forever in the future. In this exhibition, 180 artists participated, and there are almost 300 artworks from all over China were showed, presented. And then it provided, as you can see, comprehensive view of the experimental works that emerged in the mainland in China after 1985 New Wave, because 1985 is one of the crucially important landmark year, let's say. And that year is very much memorable. I will tell you later. This exhibition was curated by Li Shanting and also Peng De and the Gao Minglu, 3 curators. This exhibition became very famous because it was closed down tentatively due to some scandal. What kind of scandal? An artist's impromptu performance. Maybe I can identify her, Xiao Lu. She is the one who did the impromptu performance, on-site performance. The title of the performance is Dialogue. And then she used a loaded handgun. She was using the gun. And she shooted her work. And it happened on site. So it could be a part of the performance, but you cannot bring the real handgun. So that has become so big scandal all of a sudden. And then the exhibition closed down. So you have to understand that this particular time in this area, most of the artists are turned to be so much experimental, avant-garde. All the artists try to create something new because the newness itself has become the value at the time. The newness has become the virtue of the time. One of our participating artists, Yongwoo Lee, he said, it really looked more like a farmer's market. What mattered that day wasn't the art or the show itself. Everybody knew that we were making history. And we were totally investing in our roles as actors on a stage where anybody could suddenly become a star. So this was the poster of the exhibition. It was introduced by a book called The Contemporary Chinese Art, written by Paul Glaston. And then I'm just referring. I didn't find any images of the poster, but I found from his book. The right-hand side is Yu Johan's work, but it has nothing to do with this. So it's a pre-stage of the real appearance of the cross. Look at this. This is a 1985, 3 years before the real painting of the appearance of the cross. You can see the cross, but there is a mix. You won't be able to say that this is an entirely abstract painting. Right-hand side is a bit, you can see the progress out of this. Even you can see the title is another appearance of crosses. This one title is Breaking the Sacrifice. The right one is a taboo. These are the very important references that can tell about the progression of the Dinghi's painting, developing from this type until there. The question is, why cross? Why he named it? Why titled it as a cross? Why he selected that one? So you have to understand the background of Chinese society at the time. In particular, in relation to the artistic practice in 1980s. What is the 1980s is meant to be in the art history of the China? 1980s, and we art historians define it's an unprecedented experimental dawn in the history of Chinese art, which was leading the young artists and theorists to the experimental movement at the time. And then there is also very much a hybrid period in which ideals and fantasies, retro, surreal, and sentimental, radical arts erupted all together at the same time. So the artist Dingy, young artist Dingy at the time, he decided, he took a step back from this kind of overheated frenzy scene, reflecting on the influence of the Western contemporary art discourse and style on Chinese contemporary art. Because in this period of time, two issues were heavily raised. One, what is the cultural tradition of China? So many group of artists, they started re-research about cultural tradition of China. We have to reflect this kind of subject into our artistic practice. The second group is that they were hugely affected and then influenced by the Western trends, 1960s and 70s Western society. So this is what Ding Lao said at the time. I found it necessary to distance myself both from the burden of the traditional Chinese culture and from the influence of the Western modernism to go back to the starting point of art, to literally start from zero. He's not only focusing on the painting, but he, from time to time, performed this kind of performance, completely covered with the yellow fabrics. And can you imagine that he has done this kind of performance? So that's why he is described as a multidisciplinary artist. That particular society, 1980s, it's in a society looking for value. Everything was looking for the new value. I said, newness itself has become the value. Newness has become the virtue. But he answered with valuelessness. What is the valuelessness? The cross. It means almost nothing. It looks like a mathematical sign. It's a plus, or in Chinese it's a shi, just meaningless alternative to the age of meaning. Everybody thought that is very, very meaningful time. That is really valuable time in the history of art. Everybody wants to create something new. But he was reversely returned to what? To the zero that he really started from. So this is a cross, and this is a variant. This is original, this is a variant. So Ding has been using both. He wanted to create art that is not art-like. So that is very important aesthetic statement in order to prevent the revolution of identity in which ordinary objects an artist produce his or her own work by using this kind of objects. But this all of a sudden object has become an object to be worshipped by the audience. And then that is what is an aesthetic baptism injected by the artist. Let's say this is an Evian water. If some signs here, painting here by Dingy, and then it becomes all of a sudden artistic object. It is experiencing the revolution of the identity. So it's a very simple object. It becomes the object of worship by the audience. This has been baptized by the artist. So this was the process, and then he was completely rejecting the process. So when I started to use the term aesthetic baptism by artists don't like that because they are not baptizing it, they're creating their own work. But anyway, in the market, it becomes all of a sudden like a very expensive artistic object, let's say. So this aesthetic baptism creates a market, it creates a fame, it creates art history, all that. So, of course, that is very natural process on the one hand, but on the other, it's debatable always. So what I'm saying is, Dingy, from the earlier career, he already started to refuse that kind of aesthetic baptism by using something very simple object, and then art that is not art-like. And also he wanted to start his artistic career from zero without being affected and influenced by any kind of trend at the time. Now you understand why he was using this very simple, meaningless, just a sign. Tens of years later, this very simple, meaningless sign has become one of the most important artistic elements in the name of artist Dingyi. So most of the avant-garde artistic practice in the beginning, they try to prevent, they try to be against any kind of stream, existing streams. But later, with the historical trajectory, they all become famous. Another one that we need to understand, Dingyi's work. I put it like no center in this painting. Can you find the center of the painting? Any center? So this is what pictorial freedom, I named it as a pictorial freedom, because he himself created pictorial freedom, and also audiences, they are liberated from any kind of center, the central position or centralization of the painting. So they say most of the audiences, because we get too familiar with the contents and then context of the artwork, they have kind of a habitual orientation of finding the center. Dingyi knew that, of course, and then he intentionally deconstructed the painting itself. There is no center at all. Any place can be the center. So that's why I named it as a pictorial freedom, created by him and then presented to the audience, pictorial freedom as well. Same thing, as you can see. So there's no center, so decentralization of the center. And then I named it as a kind of deconstructivism of the abstract even, because it's an abstract painting, but from the abstract painting, again, he deconstructed. So again, I'm using the term like a pictorial liberation. Same thing. As you can see, this is also the decentralization. This was created between 2010 and 2014, and then some people say this painting has a center. Where? Over here, because we are all centralized over here. Is that true? No, you won't be able to say this is the real center. And one day I was looking at it. It looks like a kind of a tunnel. You see the tunnel when you are getting into the tunnel. In Chinese, 隧道. So, and I asked him, it looks like a 隧道. He said, yes, it is. I was thinking of it. So that was like unconsciously matching. So this is a very big painting where he presented at the Challenging Soul exhibition at the Shanghai PSA. And this is a mandala, a very, very important painting art historically. This painting has been created in relation to Tibetan culture also, because he travels that west area pretty often. And then this was one of the very important results out of his journey. What I would like to say is that it's a very rare case for the symbolic pattern, which is a cross, and then variant cross, acquired in his youth to accompany an artist's entire artistic practice like Dingyi. This is a very unusual case. So just the tiny small things, through the almost 40 years of artistic practice, it's becoming a cross galaxy. So today I wanted to share with you how Dingyi's artistic practice has been born. What is the origin? What is the seed of his artistic practice? And then thank you for your patience. Thank you.